Hello there, how's it going? This is my 12th recording on the book Atomic Habits, and so far we have talked about 5 chapters. Wow, we have talked about 5 chapters already. And in this one, I'm going to talk about chapter number 6. Motivation is overrated, environment often matters more. I think this is one of the most important chapters in the book. Here, it delves into the behaviorism aspect of human behavior, that in order to change what you do, you must change the environment around you. For example, I can give you a few examples, very common examples. If someone is a drug addict, why is he a drug addict? Because he's a bad person? Well, it is most likely that that person was surrounded by a lot of drug addicts in the beginning. He must have made friends who were drug addicts, so he tried some himself and he got addicted to it. So that's the environment aspect. So uh, in our lives we use a smartphone all the time because everyone else is doing. We live in an environment where everyone else is using a smartphone, so that affects us. And you can take example of junk food. Everyone eats pizza or burgers, so we eat them once in a while because everyone else is doing it. So that's the people aspect, but there are also the things you see. If you see something, you are more likely to try it. That's the environment aspect. So if you want to become a better person, you must try to make your environment better. And when the environment is better, you are more likely to do better things. So for example, in eating healthy food, you can start bringing healthy fruits in your home and put them in the refrigerator. So when you see it, you are more likely to try it instead of just thinking about it. I'm gonna eat healthy. I'm gonna eat healthy. That's the most basic idea of behaviorism, that you change depending on the environment you are in, not because of what you are thinking. Well, thinking is one part of human behavior, but it's hard to change someone's thought, right? But it's easier, slightly easier to change their environment. That's the reason you can say that students are better at studying in a library, because library is an environment designed for studying, than their room, because in their room they might have a lot of distractions. So whenever you want to improve your habits, see how you can change your environment. That's the most basic idea. So let's read the chapter. Chapter number 6. Motivation is overrated. Environment often matters more. People often choose products not because of what they are, but because of where they are. Yeah, that's the idea of, as I said, social media. You don't use it because you want to, you use it because it's in every phone and everyone else uses it. If I walk into the kitchen counter and see a plate of cookies on the counter, I'll pick up a few and start eating, even if I wasn't thinking about them beforehand. Yeah, so he gives an example. If he sees some biscuits on the counter, he will get the urge to pick up a few and start, and he will eat it. Not because he was thinking or he had made a decision of eating cookies, but because he just saw them. He just saw them. What if you see books in your home everywhere? You might start reading them, right? I'll pick up a few and start eating if I wasn't thinking about them beforehand. Your habits change depending on the room you are in and the cues in front of you. That's the basic idea. Your habits change depending on the room you are in. Effect of environment on human behavior. Environment is the invisible hand that shapes human behavior. Despite our unique personalities, certain behaviors tend to arise again and again under certain environmental conditions. We are changed by the world around us. Every habit is context dependent. Yeah, I highlighted this part. Every habit is context dependent. So, for example, if you go to the gym, you won't be doing anything other than exercising in the gym. However, if you try to exercise in your room, that's going to be difficult. So that's the context aspect of a habit. Environment is the context. Now he says environment is the invisible hand that shapes human behavior. Very powerful idea. That's the reason I would say that people from the third world countries are so unsuccessful than people from the first world countries because we are not brought up in a good environment. I don't want to blame the environment too much, but that's one of the reasons, not the only reason, but one of the reasons that we are not brought up in a good environment. Our educational systems, that's the environment, not very good. Our household systems, our parents are not very good at upbringing us. We learn bad words at a very young age, for example. So, environment is the invisible hand that shapes human behavior. Now, he uses a mathematical formula. Behavior is a function of the person in the environment. So, person is you, what you think, for example, and the environment. So, internal and external, they both combine and give you a behavior. Now, some people are extremely disciplined, they have a strong willpower, a strong character. Even if you put them in a bad environment, they will still do good behavior. However, most of us who are not disciplined, it's hard for us to change ourselves, but we can try. We can always try to improve our environment. For example, Jordan Peterson says to always clean your room. You are more likely to have a productive day when your room is cleaned, because when your room is cleaned, it will affect your mood and your mood will affect what you do. So always keep your room clean at least. That's the environment. The most obviously available a product or service is, the more likely you are to try it. We think we are in control if we choose water over soda. We assume it is because we wanted to do so. The truth, however, is that many of the actions we take each day are shaped not by purposeful drive and choice, but by the most obvious option. Exactly. If you if you drink water or soda, it's most likely because water is more readily available than soda. But if you go to if you visit a location, an environment where soda is more readily available, let's say a restaurant, has have you ever seen someone drink water with fast food? No, most people drink soda with fast food because that's the most readily option available there. So that's the idea. So when you take a good decision, don't think you are being too smart. It's most likely that you are taking a good decision because that's the most obvious option available. I would like to give an example of cheating in an exam. Most people would cheat an exam if they were given an opportunity, right? I mean, that's a bad thing to think about, but I would believe that that's true. The reason there are 6, 7 invigilators in the same room is because we don't cheat. Now we don't have the option to cheat, right? Because they are looking at us. But let's imagine there is no invigilator. Would people cheat? Although they know cheating is bad, but now they are given a choice to cheat, and most of them will take the option of cheating. That's the idea. In humans, perception is directed by the sensory nervous system. We perceive the world through sight, sound, smell, touch, and taste. So that's how we get our inputs. That's how we interact with the environment. We interact through sight, through looking, through sound, by hearing, by smelling, by touching, and by tasting. These are the five things we interact with our environment. However, he says the most important of them is sight, what we see. And here he goes about talk about them. The most powerful of all human sensory abilities, however, is vision. The human body has about 11 million sensory receptors. Approximately 10 million of those are dedicated to sight. So 10 million receptors are dedicated to sight. So most of the work our brain does is to process the information we see, we look at. Given that we are more dependent on vision than on any other sense, it should come as no surprise that visual cues are the greatest catalyst of our behavior. I like the word catalyst. So catalyst means they initiate our behavior. So if you want to do good things, add good things in your environment so you can look at them. If you want to read books, as I said, try to put books where you can actually see them in your environment. For this reason, a small change in what you see can lead to a big shift in what you do. We have, for example, junk food. If you take account of your day, do you think that you are looking at junk food for most of the day? Is that the reason you eat it? Try to see if you can limit looking at it. As a result, you can imagine how important it is to live and work environments that are filled with productive cues and devoid of unproductive ones. You don't have to be the victim of your environment, you can also be the architect of it. Yeah, so you don't need to blame the environment for all the bad things you have been doing. You have to take the responsibility not only for yourself but for your environment. So the behaviorism aspect of the book is that change begins by changing the environment. Of course, you are also going to change yourself. That's what we talked about chapter number 2. So there is internal and external aspect of behavior change. These are, I would say, two keys that unlock the idea of self growth. If you want to change, if you want to become a better person, you must change yourself first. Of course, that's from chapter 2. But now you must also change your environment. You can't stay positive in a negative environment, right? If you, let's say, take a very hardworking student, but if you put him in a room where everyone else is lazy and undisciplined, he might that's not a good environment for the hardworking student, right? So if you want to become a good person, try to see what kind of environment good people live in and see if you can change your environment. You can change your environment like theirs. That's, so we have not finished chapter 6 as of now. In the next video, I can talk about how to design your environment for success. It's quite small, so it wouldn't take too long. So this is it for today.